Hi guys, in this video tutorial I will show you how to create this pretty double layered edge band and how to use a crochet hook to pick up and bind off stitches. In my previous video tutorial I showed you the simple method for this type of edge band. We used a knitting needles to pick up stitches and pick up and knit method. This time we are going to use a crochet hook to make a row of slipped stitches and to pick up stitches along the edge. This method creates a bit neater result and it's much better for non-stretchy yarns such as cotton, linen and their blends. I'm going to show you this technique in my swatch using a contrast yarn because it's a bit hard to see all stitches on the light yarn which I used for my vest. Also, I will show you some steps on my vest. So you will need your knitted garment, skein of yarn for edge bands, crochet hook without handle. I'm going to use 3mm hooks and knitting needles for knitting of bands. So let's go ahead and start creating our edge bands. So we need to pick up stitches into the first stitch after the edge stitch. You can see here 2 loops is my edge stitch and those 2 loops edge stitch and first stitch, and I'm going to work my stitches into the first stitch, and I need to start from wrong side and make the row of slip stitches using crochet hook. So I'm insert my crochet hook into the first stitch into my cast on row, pick up my yarn and make a loop. Then I need to insert my crochet hook into the first stitch. I'm checking that I'm working into the first stitch, not between edge stitch and first stitch. Pick up my yarn, make loop and pass it through the first stitch on my crochet hook. Now I'm going to do my next stitch into the third one, and I'm going to pass my fourth stitch. I'm using the same ratio for slip stitches as I would do for pick up and knit method. So I slip my fourth stitch and make another 3 stitches. Make sure that you are working not very tight and not too loose. We don't want to overstretch or stretch our edge. We don't want to make it tight. Okay, I pass the stitch and I need to pass the following stitch, and I make another 3 stitches. Now I pass the fourth stitch and I continue in this manner to the end of my row. Basically, if you are working along your armhole, you are working from wrong side of your knitting, because from wrong side we need to have this chain, and from right side we would have just row of stitches, like straight line of stitches. So I need to pass my fourth stitch and continue. This method looks a bit complicated at first, but it has its own advantages. I think it creates neater, flatter edge. And in case if we've got loose edge stitches or loose first stitch, this method fixes this problem. And it also doesn't create big holes along the edge, like sometimes picking up stitches with needle does for some yarns. And for thick yarns, this method I think is easier and prettier. So I'm reaching the edge of my row, the edge of my swatch, and I'm going to make the last stitch into my bind off or cast on row, depending from where I started. So here my last stitch, and I'm going to place stitch marker into it. I'm not going to tighten it, to fasten it. I'm going to use it at the end of my row. So if you need to do your edge band for the armhole itself, you need to stop creating chain of slip stitches with your wrong side facing. You need to find the middle of your armhole, lower edge of your armhole. I've got 8 stitches, and if I place my marker after the 4th stitch, and I can start picking up, I can start working my row of slip stitches from my wrong side using crochet hook. And for my vest, I'm going to use the same pickup ratio which I showed you for my swatch. It will be 3 stitches per 4 rows, and I'm going to work my stitches into the first stitch, not between edge stitch and first stitch, but into my edge stitch. So I'm controlling my stitches from right side. So you can see, if I'm working with the same color yarn, my stitches less visible, but I still got this chain from wrong side. And here my row of stitches, I will use my needle to show you. Here my row of stitches where I'm going to pick up my first row. Here you can see this is my stitches. So now here I'm turning my knitting to right side, and you can see here we've got a row of stitches, and now using crochet hook again, I'm going to pick up and knit stitches into this row. So now I need to hold, also I need my knitting needles, and now I need to pass my crochet hook into first stitch from right to left, pick up the yarn and make a loop. I keep this stitch on my crochet hook, and now I need to insert my hook into the second stitch. This method looks a bit tricky at first, but with some experience you should have no problem. Oh. My second stitch. Now I do the same into the third stitch. So I insert my hook, pick up the yarn, and pass it through. Here I've got 3 stitches. I forgot to mention that you need to use crochet hook without handle, just with thin handle. And now I pass my 3 stitches to my needle, and I'm going to continue picking up stitches using crochet hook. Again, hold your working yarn from the left of your row of slip stitches and your crochet hook from right side. Insert your hook into the next stitch, pick up yarn and pass it through. Repeat those steps with the second stitch, then with the third stitch, and with the following stitch, and until you picked up stitches along the row, along the edge. Normally I would pick up like 8-10 stitches and then move them to my needle, or fewer if you feel it's comfortable. You can see you also need to make sure that you place your stitches correctly. So open up your stitch and move it to your needle. Not like this, but with the front loop facing you. So next step, I pick up another portion of stitches. From right side of my knitting. This first row looks a bit slow, but I think it's worth all our efforts. And the finished result will be a bit better than using my first method. And also you can see this method already creates this row of purl stitches. So after we pick up this row, we need to continue working in stocking stitch straight away. Control your stitches, the size of your stitches, your tension at every stage of this process. Here I'm finishing my pickup row. If you are working along your armhole, your finishing your round. Here my last stitch is a bit tight, so I will open it up a little bit using my needle so I can insert my crochet hook inside of it, and I'm picking up my last stitch, move it to my needle, so here my pickup row or my first row, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to turn my knitting to wrong side and continue working in stocking stitch. So for knitting on straight needles we need to purl our first row. If we are going to knit in the round, we are going to beginning of our round, placing end of round marker and continue knitting in stocking stitch. So now we need to work 4 rows in stocking stitch. So I'm going to purl row, then knit row, and then repeat those 2 steps. For knitting in the round you need to knit 4 rounds. I'm working my edge band with 3mm needles and my swatch is knitted with 3.5. As I already mentioned a few times in my previous videos, I normally work edge bands, ribbon or edge bands and stocking stitch with 1 size smaller knitting needles. Now I'm turning my knitting and continue in stocking stitch. And now I need to continue and work 2 more rows in stocking stitch. So here I worked 4 rows in stocking stitch, and now I need to make 1 purl row. I mean, the following row should look like purl row from right side. So if you are knitting in the round, you need to purl 1 row, and for my case I need to knit 1 row from wrong side. And now I need to work 4 more rows in stocking stitch. So here I completed my 4 rows in stocking stitch. Now I need to fold my knitting edge in half, and now I'm going to pick up those stitches from wrong side and work them together with my stitches on my needle. But first I'm going to pick up this very first stitch on my stitch marker. So now I'm working, knitting those 2 stitches together, and now I need to pick up the closer loop of my pickup chain and place it to my left needle and work those 2 stitches, first 2 stitches together, new stitch and first stitch on my needle, and then slip the first stitch on my right needle over the second stitch. Now I need to pick up my second stitch So now I need to pick up my second stitch, place it to my left needle, and work 2 stitches together and bind off this stitch, and repeat this step for the following stitch. Pick up the stitch, place it to your left needle, and work 2 stitches together and slip the first stitch on my right needle over and the next. So you can see in this method no seaming involved. We are binding off stitches and attaching the edge of our armhole band to the pickup row. So showing more closely, here our chain of slip stitches, and we need to pick up closer to the edge loop and place it to left needle and knit those stitches together with our stitches on a left needle, one by one, step by step. So this is another slow step, but as you can see, result is very beautiful and very neat. Again, I'm working with slightly thicker yarn for my edge band, so it might look a bit bulkier than my main fabric. But if you work this with your main yarn, the one you used for knitting of your top, the result will be much better and much prettier. So I continue in this manner to the end of my row. So I'm finishing my row. I've got just 3 pairs stitches left. And my last stitch. So here you need to fasten off your yarn. And here my finished edge. As you can see, it's create slightly flatter edge comparing to the first method. Don't know how to show it more closely. You can see here more visible transition from main fabric to edge band. It's like slightly above the surface, but here our pickup row laying between stitches, just like inside of stitch, and the edge feels a bit flatter, but it looks a bit bumpier from wrong side of knitting. But I think it's mostly because I knitted the edge band with thicker yarn again, because as you can see for my vest, it looks much thinner, much neater and prettier. You can see for those edge bands I used the same weight cotton yarn, but you visually can see that pink stitches much wider. Again, I used the same size knitting needles and crochet hook, and here I knitted 5 rows in stocking stitch, but here just 4, and you can see the difference. It definitely looks much wider because of the yarn thickness. So you can decide which type of edge band you like better and use it for your knitting, for your projects, for this design or for your own designs. I think I'm fan of the second method, even it involved a bit more steps, and the first steps with crochet hook, making a row of slip stitches and picking up stitches with crochet hook. Those 2 steps are slightly slower, but at the end I think it looks prettier, flatter, flexible enough. And again, you can use this method for edge band as well. So I hope you enjoyed watching this video. Let me know which method of creating edge band you like better. I hope you're going to use any of those methods for your knitting project. Remember to subscribe to my channel for more useful video tutorials. Take care, and until next time, happy knitting!